Marvel Studios is thinking about Kang still being the villain inside of Avengers 5 and 6?
What?
Well, according to insider Daniel RPK, that is exactly what might be happening, and they might also want to add another villain as well. So in this video, let's break down who might be showing up in that second slot. Salutations and fist bumps, folks. Welcome back to the grid. Now let's take a little bit of time to explain how we actually got here. Now we all should understand how we got to this point by now, so I won't belabor the point, but for those that have no real understanding on what happened in terms of what Kang in terms of the MCU is going to look like, let's refresh that a little bit. So if you didn't know, Jonathan Majors was cast as Kang the Conqueror back in the beginning or the ending of Loki episode 6, and then through the multiverse saga, specifically seeing him show up in the major movie of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. But that then blew up in everyone's face because of the legal battles that Jonathan Majors actually found himself in due to his then girlfriend. That's a whole can of worms that I won't open up right now. But that's exactly kind of how we got here in this moment. Then after the verdict basically came down, Disney dropped him as Kang the Conqueror, bringing him back for an interview on ABC, which is the parent company or the subsidiary, I should say, of Disney. So they fired him and then brought him back, which raises some red flags for those that are paying attention. Because why would they fire him then to bring him back on a separate news outlet type of channel? Because again, that news outlet is owned by Disney, so they would have to give him money for that interview.
Oh, you're making me suspicious,
eh?
It's making me think a lot. Smart guy.
But now, seeing as we've now heard that they might want Kang as a villain still, this means that either they are going to recast him altogether, or they're going to use or slightly do something underhanded, I should say, to use Jonathan Majors' likeness, possibly even his voice. And that just seems to me. So if they are going to do this, I would rather them just to recast him, not use his likeness at all. But in any case, the thing that is truly up in the air is who is going to be in that second slot in terms of the villain for Avengers 5 and 6. And of course, I have a few theories in terms of who might show up in that second slot. Now, my first guess is Dr. Doom, because he's technically the villain of all villains, and everyone inside of the MCU community has pretty much thrown him inside of every place that he could possibly show up in, so there's no reason not to put him here either. If we're talking about Kang and another villain going head to head, this actually does happen inside of the Secret Wars comic event, because Dr. Doom summons Ultron to basically vaporize Kang inside of that event. And also, Dr. Doom is a very heavily portrayed character inside of that event. Basically, he's the almost main villain for that entire event. There's a whole lot of things that go on there, but he has a really important role inside of that comic event, so it's pretty sure or almost a surefire bet to expect to see him or a relic of him inside of those events. And speaking of Ultron,
Peace in our time.
why not? I mean, you probably knew I was going this route when you heard me say that Ultron vaporizes Kang, but there is a possibility that because of the relationship to that comic event, Ultron may show up inside of those events in terms of Avengers 5 and 6 as well. However, if that is the case, I would probably think that he was going to show up as Ultimate Ultron instead of the watered down version that we saw in Age of Ultron earlier in the MCU. Next up on the list is Molecule Man, and I have a bit of a plot twist or left field draw that I need to warn you about before we go into this. There is a theory, at least one that I read this morning. It's about a couple years old, 2 years to be exact specifically, but it does make a lot of sense. And in it, it makes a mention that Wanda may be the MCU stand-in for Molecule Man, due to the fact that she is the reason that we now have Incursion. However, Per the MCU timeline book, Wanda is supposedly deceased given the events of Multiverse of Madness. And if you don't know, in the Secret Wars comic event, Molecule Man is the reason for Incursion, and that then pits him in front of the Beyonder or Beyonders if there are multiple of them. Incoming plot twist, because what if Molecule Man does exactly the same thing that he does in the comic event in terms of being able to open incursions, that he does that to bring back Wanda through an incursion, possibly where her kids, or a version of Wanda and her kids, are living in a separate timeline. Okay, and my last guess here would obviously be the Beyonder. Multiple versions of the Beyonder, if there are multiples inside of the MCU that we just don't know about, because that is exactly what the Beyonder or Beyonders actually end up being inside of the comics. So, but if they do bring this big gun out, they better give us an epic battle scene like we have never seen since Endgame, or re-ride at dawn. So those are my best guesses as to who may be showing up in the second slot next to Kang in terms of the major villain for Avengers 5 and 6, assuming that they are going to go in that direction, keeping Kang in his spot currently. And as you know, at least if you are a fan of this channel, you should already know that I would love to see that, because I'm a fan of Jonathan Majors' portrayal of Kang inside of the MCU. It was just so wonderful. I want more of it, but we'll just have to see. And you might be wondering or thinking about trying to figure out how all of this MCU stuff kind of boils down from the beginning to present. So I took the liberty to actually make some videos about that. Go ahead and click this video or the playlist that should be showing up by now. And until next time, y'all be smooth, blurred out.